super fun, and all about artisan cheese and more to melt your peaceful heart and toast your peaceful life. Coming to you from the Appalachian Mountains of southwestern Virginia, this is the Peaceful Heart Farmcast.
Hey, this is Scott Hall from Peaceful Heart Farm, and you are listening to the Peaceful Heart Farmcast.
Hello, everybody. Melanie Hall here. Hope you are doing well. The conversation today and every day revolves around the value of tradition, traditional living, traditional food prep and storage, traditional cooking, and of course, traditional raw milk products and artisan cheese. Topics discussed here are designed to create new perspectives and possibilities for how you might add the taste of tradition to your life. I've been off track on a few things in my life, and today's podcast is about getting back on track. No matter what activity or goal in which you are off track, there are ways to get it back together. Let's talk about that. Welcome, new listeners. Welcome back, veteran homestead-loving regulars. I appreciate you all so much. In today's show, I'm going to do lots and lots of homestead life updates, and then I'm just going to talk a little bit about getting back on track, giving you a recipe for success. All right, so as far as the homestead, the first item of note is I'm changing the podcast format. As you may have noticed, I do not publish nearly as many podcasts as when I started out. Life on the homestead is quite full, and the podcast is what is nearly always pushed to the back burner when push comes to shove. So going forward, I'm changing the format to one that I can fit into a very limited time frame. I still want to talk with you each week, but doing more than sharing my current thoughts and experiences on the homestead are about all I can handle time-wise. So the podcasts will be shorter in duration and focused on our traditional homestead life. I'm giving up on having a recipe each and every time. I may still throw in a few here and there, but it won't be a regular feature. The topics each week will revolve around life on the homestead and no longer contain educational content in exactly the same form. The educational aspect will be me sharing my personal learning experiences as well as maybe stories about how we do things on our homestead and why. So the preparation for that large middle section of the podcast is the sticking point that stopped me from doing the rest of the podcast. It's a daunting task to come up with that content when I have so much else to do. So many other things require my attention. Therefore, I'm eliminating that block to my success and moving forward with what will work better for me and the homestead life. And I hope it will still be entertaining and educational for you. And if not, I understand, and we'll miss you. We all have to do what works best for us. Now, on to what is going on at the homestead, followed by a vivid dream that I had that it has helped me to get back on track with my goals. But first, what's going on here? Well, the cows, we got to talk about the cows. That's our central focus here. Claire had her calf on April the 8th, yet another bull. We named him Wendell. He's beautiful and healthy. Remember Luna? That's Cloud's calf that was born in November last year. She was out of sequence with our breeding schedule. They're all supposed to be born March, April, May timeframe. We hope to gain a better handle on breeding beginning this year. We're trying artificial insemination for the first time. Anyway, Luna and Wendell are sharing space with the sheep, and there'll be more on that later. Artificial insemination is our next big learning curve in regards to cow animal husbandry. Our goal there is to use sexed semen so we get heifers instead of so many bulls. The reasoning there has several points. Number one is that we are trying to improve our herd genetics. Using artificial insemination is a good way to do that because we can choose the genetic traits in the bull that we're looking to cultivate in our herd. We want A2A2, we want lots of heifers, we want good milking qualities, we want the kappa casein is classified as BB. These are all just letters that I'm throwing out there, but this is how we decide what genetics that we want. We want really good milk and we want really good cheese. Now, also with the sexed semen, we'll be able to grow the herd without purchasing heifers from other farms. because we keep having so many bulls. We were talking about buying a bred heifer from another farm. But there are multiple problems purchasing from other farms, and the biggest one being the closest Normandy dairy stock is somewhere in Wisconsin or maybe Missouri. I know there's some in Wisconsin. There might be some in Missouri too, but they're lovely places, but it's a long way for us to go to get a cow. So I'll share those AI learning experiences as they come up. So far, we've acquired the semen and the tank in which to store it. We hooked up with a person who can recharge the nitrogen tank that keeps that semen frozen. That was one of Scott's adventures. Again, living remotely and having a very small operation limits the availability of lots of services others can easily obtain. It took lots and lots of phone calls over weeks of time to get that set up, with just getting the semen and getting the tank and then finding someone that could recharge it for us. Next, it'll be some hands-on learning on how to do the artificial insemination ourselves. And I'll keep you posted on that. I think we're set up to start that process in June or perhaps July. Again, that's Scott's arena. He'll let me know as that date comes closer. So, Luna and Wendell are sharing space with the sheep. They're all away from the main part of the herd. Luna and Wendell have been weaned from their moms. Wendell's on a bottle, and Luna is old enough that Cloud would have started kicking her off soon anyway, so she's dining on grass all the time. And the sheep are due to start lambing around May 6th. I like to keep them close until that time is up, until the lambing time is up. Newborn lambs are the epitome of skin and bones. They grow and put on weight very quickly, but there's nothing to them when they exit the womb. That's because often they have 2, 3, or even 4 lambs at a time. Goat kids too, and they're just skin and bones. The first week of their life is very important. And once they get past that first week, they have a great chance of making it all the way to adulthood. They'll put on a lot of weight in that first week, maybe even double their weight. A couple of years ago, we started giving the sheep ewes and goat does a supplement just before their lambing and kidding dates. In this part of the country, the soil is deficient in selenium, and it's an important nutrient for muscles. The goat kids were particularly susceptible to what is called white muscle disease. Sometime during the first week of their life, all of a sudden, they cannot get up. Their muscles simply don't work. And goat kids are the greatest at hiding. They are nearly impossible to find when they've gone off to sleep somewhere. So you can see the problem. They can't get up and nurse, and we can't find them. We noticed that each year in that first week of life that quite a few goat kids would just go missing, and we thought that predators were the problem. But no, it was nutrition. I happened to catch sight of one that was too weak to stand up. This was a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I quickly scooped him up, caught Mom up, and set up some temporary housing for them. Then I got out a few of the books that we have about the animals and their health and so on, and I started looking for what could be the problem. I called the vet, and I got even more information there, and after that phone call, I immediately began giving the doe a feed supplement that was fortified with selenium. That nutrition would pass through her milk to him. We kept Mom and kid in a little small dog cage, so we didn't lose track of the kid. He couldn't go off and get lost and hide. And I milked her out a little and fed him by hand at first. But within a day, he was better. And within about 5 days, he was back on his feet and growing rapidly. It was so quick. They only need just a little bit. And he was finally getting the nutrition that he needed via his mother's milk. So after that learning experience, every year at kidding and lambing time, they get that same feed supplement just for a couple of weeks. We are a grass-based operation for the most part. But we're perfectly willing to use any scientific advancement as needed for the health of our animals. And again, after a week or so, those lambs and kids are good to go, and we stop feeding the supplement. Then moms go back to 100% grass-based nutrition. So it's just a little 2-3 weeks there to make sure they have the best nutrition for themselves and for their offspring. We have been very successful with our lambs and kids since making that change. All that long story to explain why those sheep are right outside my living room window, where I can keep an eye out for when the babies are arriving. I can assist as needed, and the view of those beautiful animals grazing is the highlight of my day during this time of year. And once this isolation stuff is done with, we'll be having on-farm tours. I hope to schedule them around the time these lovely little babies are being born and the first couple of months afterwards. You will never see a cuter sight than a lamb jumping straight up and down, just like boink, 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 boink. They only do it for a few months, maybe even only about 2 months, but it is just delightful to watch. It happens just about dusk. That seems to be their cue to set that little frolicking into motion. So I'm looking forward to that in the next month or so. Now, speaking of new babies, the quail eggs I saved a little while back went into what we call lockdown. They've been in the incubator for 15 days. I take out the automatic egg turner, and then I lay all of the eggs on the bottom of the incubator in anticipation of the hatching within a day or two. The automatic, they fit tightly into the little automatic turner, so it turns them and makes sure that they don't actually stick to the side of the eggs. And but like 3 days before 2 to 3 days before they're scheduled to hatch, we take them out of that egg turner and just lay them on the bottom of the incubator. I literally expect to hear peeping tomorrow morning. It was yesterday that I put them into what we call lockdown. They will be shut up in there for 3 days from the time the first one hatches. They have just enough nutrition to last 3 days. We're waiting for the rest of the eggs to hatch, and you need to keep the lid closed during that time when some other eggs are going to hatch out over time. The temperature and humidity must remain constant during this critical time. We have 48 eggs in there. I'll let you know how that goes in the next podcast. Moving on to the garden. Scott has worked very diligently on getting the ground mulch put back in place. It washed out so badly during the winter. But the walking paths are now completely covered again in mulch, and that keeps the weeds out of the paths. And the next new thing we are trying in the garden is using woven ground cover to keep the weed population under control. Good weed control is essential for healthy plants. Healthy plants are much more resistant to pests and diseases. So he's put fresh compost in there, and then he's put out this woven ground cover, and I believe today he's out there cutting holes in it. We'll be planting seeds and plants directly through this ground cover into the ground, and the water can go between, because it's woven, the water can go in between it. So when it rains on it, it goes right in between there. But it's very dark. It keeps the light off of the plants. Anyway, we're hoping it works. But the bulk of the planting is still a couple of weeks away. I can start some things next week. I can start putting stuff out there. And I already need to repot my tomato seedlings. I have 40-something plants that will get planted out in the garden sometime around the middle to end of May, as far as the tomatoes. But right now, they're growing very well, and they need more soil and space, so I'm going to have to put them all into bigger pots. That's a task for another day, not today. I also have lots of peppers, both hot and sweet, and those need to be repotted as well. I'm growing celery and onion starts. Those move along much more slowly, but they are both healthy and doing well. Now, a new garden adventure for me this year is growing lots of culinary herbs. I use lots of herbs in cooking, as you probably do as well, but they're dried herbs for the most part, unless I make a special trip to town to go to the grocery store. I'm looking forward to learning how to grow some of my favorites, because we really don't go to town that often. We're always in isolation. Anyway, right now I have starts for sweet basil, cilantro, parsley. I have thyme, oregano, and mint. I've tried twice to sprout rosemary with no success so far. I may have to get a cutting of that to get started. Another bright idea I had was to make a grouping of these plants and sell them at the farmer's market for your home herb garden. So I had a little pot set up that would hold 7 herb plants. But that's not going to happen this year. The farmer's market is very limited in how they operate at the moment. And I think that when we do get back into full swing, the opportunity for those sales will be long past. The plants will be really big. Oh well, there's always next year. The creamery, let's talk about the creamery. We are into our 4th year of creating this building from the ground up. I say we, but it is Scott that is doing it. He is so amazing. He's taken a break from getting the roof on over the barn and milking parlor. Because we are in milk and I'm making lots of cheese, we need storage space. And the small cooler is getting closer and closer to being ready to house some of that cheese. If you've been listening to my podcast, you know that he got the roof over the creamery part done, I don't know, a month or so ago, maybe more. Anyway, I lose track of time. But with the roof on, he's actually just finishing out that small cooler room just kind of on its own. We'll have to run electricity out there with extension cords, but it will open up so many possibilities once we have more space to age cheese. Because here's the thing, waxing cheeses has been the method of choice for aging up until this point. And that's mainly because I couldn't control the humidity and the cheese would get too dry if I tried to grow a natural rind. So we were doing this whole waxing thing and it works okay, but there's so many other possibilities when you grow a natural rind. You know, when you're adding different mold cultures basically that will penetrate into the cheese. So that's all about to change. In a space that's created specifically for aging cheese, then controlling humidity is part of the building design. I'm just so excited to try some new things in the new cheese cave. One small caveat there. Scott has injured the thumb on his right hand and can't really grip anything or wield a hammer. Cloud got a little upset a day or two ago and kicked him hard during milking. And we're working with her to get her calmed back down. Not really sure why she's having a problem. I'll talk more about that next time because I've already got so much in this podcast right now. But it's just another challenge on the homestead. Anyway, Scott is now modifying what he can and cannot do because of this crippled hand where he doesn't have a thumb on his right hand and he's right-handed. I'm getting more help around the house, but I think he would rather be completing that cheese cave project. I believe he said it might be a couple of weeks before his hand is healed enough to continue with construction. What will he do with himself? Perhaps he will make cheese. He really likes to make cheese. Last year, he was putting those block walls up and only made cheese 3 times. I know that because he makes the cheddar, and he makes a great cheddar. We had 3 giant 25-pound cheddar wheels. I think we're on the second one. It's nearing a year of aging, and OMG, is it good. I am making cheese at least once a week. Maybe Scott will make one each week as well. As soon as Buttercup and Butter have their calves, we will be drowning in milk and making lots and lots of cheese. It's a beautiful thing. And pressure like that, just milk pouring in all over the place, it helps me get back on track if I've strayed from the goals. Additionally, I had this really great dream that came from a new process that I started a couple of weeks ago. It's really working for me, and I want to share it with you. Perhaps it will help you as well. So first, let me tell you the dream, and then I'll talk about my recent experiences and practices that led to having the dream. So in the dream, I went to visit a female friend. My friend was, quote, off track. I believe it was in regards to her diet, not necessarily a weight loss diet, simply her nutritional diet of choice, which involves choosing some foods over others. And she was not choosing according to her plan. And I decided to help out, but I didn't know what I was going to do. I just decided and moved forward with my plan. My friend's husband was there, and I told him I was going to help her get back on track. He looks at me really gratefully and looked at his wife with supportive expression and said, "See you later, have fun." And he left. He had complete trust in me being able to make a difference in her life. I still didn't know what to do, but I really wanted to help her. She was off her diet and couldn't seem to get back on track. She was suffering from continuous beating herself up, berating herself, and generally giving up. She was experiencing the "what's the use" thought pattern. So I told her we'll just walk through this together. And then the dream switched to a room full of tables of food. And we walked from table to table looking at and smelling food. At each luscious food dish, we would say together, maybe tomorrow, but not today. And this was the key. There was no restriction. The food was absolutely available as a choice, but the choice was deferred. Maybe tomorrow, but not today. She repeated it like a mantra. So that's the end of the dream, and it was pretty clear to me what it meant for me. You see, the problem is the restriction. I have found this to be true of all things that I am resisting. When someone tells me I can't have something or can't do something, immediately my mind goes into overdrive and incessant desire to have or do the thing that is forbidden. I know, pretty childish, right? And it is indeed childish. It is a learned behavior from childhood, and this kind of deeply ingrained response can really interfere with my daily adult life. It gets me off track. And for me, getting off track starts really, really small, and then it grows. Pretty quickly, it grows exponentially. What I choose to eat is where I fall off the wagon most often, kind of like the dream. But it happens in other areas. It's a thought pattern, so it's not only in one area that you'll find this kind of thought pattern. So it all kinds of it could be food, it could be exercise, household tasks, doing marketing for the business. It just kind of all snowballs together once I start making excuses and making bad choices. And I don't know about you, but I tend to berate myself as I make bad choices. I even watch myself leaning toward those bad choices, tell myself I know it's a bad choice, and then I do it anyway. And it can be a real downhill spiral from there. I'm an awful person for knowing how to make a better choice and then not doing it. That reaffirms to me that I'm an awful person. Awful people make awful choices. Hey, I'm an awful person, so I'll just do it again. And I'm powerless against my own mind, and then on and on and on. It's a downward spiral that eventually gets me to a place of hopelessness. What's the use? I'm hopeless that I will ever be a good person and make good choices. So these are all character judgments by me about me. And perhaps you can relate to this. Maybe for you it's screwing up a really great job because you just can't seem to get it together. But you just keep doing what you know is wrong. Maybe it's your relationship. You know what you need to do, but you just keep doing what you've been doing all the while, knowing it's the wrong thing to do. Maybe you set yourself a goal to pay off all your debts and save money to build your own homestead. But darn, you really want that new car and that fantastic outfit and a great trip to Europe and so on. You keep spending your money instead of saving it. Perhaps getting even more indebted. The complete opposite of what you say you want. You know, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. But actually, when the hopelessness enters the pictures, you don't really expect a different outcome at that point. And in a way, it's a great place to be. There's nowhere to go but up. And the way back up is similar to the way down. It will start with a very small choice, then a bigger choice, and a bigger choice, and so on until you're roaring with strength and confidence again that you are a good person and you can make good choices. But what starts the cycle? What is the driving force that compels you to make that first unproductive choice, or on the other end, the first productive choice? It's freedom. It's the freedom you give yourself to make that choice. Let me explain a little. I'll use binge eating as an example, as that is my biggest issue. It's most easily identified for me. I won't say it's my biggest issue, but it's certainly the most easily identified. But the principle applies to many areas of my life. But what happens to me is that I tell myself I can't have certain things, sweets, of course, or bread or chips. And when I demand that kind of abstinence from myself, there's a childish backlash that begins to build. There's a small voice in the back of my head that says, but I really, really want it. And that voice gets stronger and stronger until it finally gets me to take that first taste. Just a taste, mind you, of the forbidden fruit. And immediately the weakness begins to step in. It's really small. You don't really notice it. What I mean by that is the self-recrimination. It's small at first. The, quote, cheat was small. But you did it one time, and so then you do it again. And the next one's larger. And, maybe you have several bites or a whole bag of chips. So the larger it gets, the smaller the disciplined voice gets, and the louder the voice of childish judgment gets. They feed on one another. The restriction gets harder and harder to maintain. The rebellion keeps getting louder until it breaks free. And that's what I mean about freedom. So it's like the freedom. I'm going to eat whatever I want. I'm going to do whatever I want. And it just comes bursting out. But it's bursting out of control. Now, what if I got to that same place without the judgment? What if I gave myself the freedom to eat absolutely anything I want at any time that I want? What would happen? Well, the fear, of course, is that I would start eating everything in sight. However, if I follow my actions and not my thoughts about what might happen, I begin to see that I am already there. I'm eating anything I desire as soon as the desire arises because I've gone off the deep end. The difference is I haven't given myself the freedom to do that. So the rebellion, the fighting is on. I've done it in rebellion against a perceived restriction. So you've got to fight against that restriction. Here's what I'm learning to do. Stop, take a deep breath, focus on the positive aspects of my nature. I am not a horrible person. Starve the negative judgments. And I only have to do it just for a second. Then I can have a rational conversation with myself. And it goes like this. Okay. Breathe. I'm okay. And you know what? I could do that. Yeah, I could. But not today. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. But not today. And as above, that small success is key. If I can stall myself for a few minutes, the urge passes. I didn't restrict myself. I simply made a small choice to put it off for a day. I might have to do that multiple times in a day, but it's each small success. I can look forward to doing the forbidden tomorrow. Except it's not forbidden, because I can do it tomorrow. I'm not restricted from it. The next day, I can test myself again. With each successful choice, I get stronger. I feel I'm in control of my life. So I'm now on the upward swing. I'm okay that I can make really bad choices if I want. I'm no longer judging myself. It is the judgment that is the problem. Even on the upward swing, if I'm consistently patting myself on the back saying I'm a good person because I'm making good choices, it leaves you open to judging yourself when you make a bad choice. No, I'm just a person. I'm in control of my life. I can make any choice I want at any time, and I'm going to make this choice right now, and tomorrow maybe I'll make the other choice. It's not a good choice or a bad choice. All choices are available. Trying to aggressively control everything inevitably leads to being out of control. Allowing all choices to be valid choices without judgment creates freedom. There is empowerment being in charge of your life. Even your own inner evil self cannot sabotage you because it's not an evil self anymore. It's just another voice. It's just, okay, I could choose that. Think of the times in your life when you've procrastinated or overindulged. Either of these actions is generally a response to restriction. In fact, procrastination is a self-imposed restriction against doing something, and overindulgence is a rebellion against a perceived outside restriction on doing something. So in either case, the easiest way that I've found to get past it is to repeat to myself over and over, maybe tomorrow, not today. Maybe tomorrow I'll play video games on a computer, but not today. Today I have tasks that need to be completed. Maybe tomorrow I'll have ice cream, but not today. Maybe tomorrow I'll take a day off from exercise, but not today. And so on. This is a simple and easy mind trick technique that works for me. The hardest part of using this technique was and still is remembering to think it or say it out loud. By the way, saying it out loud is much stronger. Saying it out loud to another person is stronger yet, because we want to be true to our word, right? So we're playing to our strength, the strengths of our character. So do you ever find yourself displaying this kind of childish stubbornness? The technique might work for you. Give it a try. Let me know how it works for you. I said the podcast would be much shorter, and now I've gone on and on. I could judge myself for that, but instead I'm simply going to end it here. I've got to get some house cleaning done. Maybe tomorrow I'll go for a recreational and peaceful walk down to the pond instead of staring at a list of unpleasant tasks. But not today. Today the bathroom needs to be cleaned. My final thoughts. I hope you will enjoy the new format and continue to come along with my journey on the homestead life. There's always so much going on in my life and in my mind, and I love sharing it with you. Living the traditional life is the best thing that I have ever created. The mental, emotional, and physical challenges are still there in abundance. I can get tired of the daily slog and want to give it all up, and then I get up and dust myself off and get back on track. It's what makes me happy and successful. No matter where you are in life, you can get back on track with your goals. Maybe tomorrow you can go back to being a child for a little while, but not today. Today, you will fulfill your potential. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hop over to Apple Podcasts, subscribe, give me a 5-star rating and review. Also, the best way to help this show grow is to share it with any friends and family who might be interested in this type of content. Thank you so much for stopping by the homestead. And until next time, may God fill your life with grace and peace.